Welcome to Misbehaving in Maine. I'm Dan Williams. This story is called Not Everyone Should Be Allowed to Draw Your Face. And now, here goes everything. When my grandpa had people over to the house for a visit, people who didn't know him well, he'd ask permission to draw one of them. He'd say he was something of an artist, a hobby artist, and that he didn't do landscapes or fruit bowls, only portraits. Then he'd ask if he could draw the visitor for some practice. This was a surprising and possibly flattering request, or maybe it was just weird. Whatever it was, people often said yes. He'd have them sit in profile, and then he would begin. The subject, or sitter, would sit very still, vanity taking over as they strained to make their nobleness rise to the top. They'd advance their chin or lengthen their neck or bite down and push a twinkle into their eye. Grandpa would glare at his subject, glare at his work. His dead silence communicated his state of mind, that of an artist who pours every ounce of his existence into every attempt to capture the elegance and severe beauty of the reality of your face. Minutes passed. More minutes. The longer he drew, the more the sitter believed they were about to look upon a reflection of their truest self. A masterpiece. Finally, Grandpa's agonizing would be done, and he'd say something like, "I think we might be finished here." Wait! Then he'd add one more thing, and maybe another thing, and then finally he would present his work. "Ready?" he'd say. "Ready," the subject would say. Then Grandpa would turn the portrait around, revealing the following image. A completely bald person who looked exactly like an elderly baby. A person with a nose bent in such a way that it could drip snot and did drip snot directly onto their huge, extended, and greedy tongue. The portrait always looked like this. Grandpa's youngest daughter is my aunt. But what you didn't automatically know about her is that she's an artist. One day, she brought a fellow artist home from college for a visit. They were all having coffee when my aunt claimed her friend was one of the best illustrators she'd ever met. "She's drawn hundreds of portraits." "Probably closer to thousands," said the friend. "What's your style again?" asked my aunt. "I'd say realism leaning toward impressionism, and now and then there's an expressionistic flair, but I can't predict it." Then she looked at Grandpa. "I could attempt a depiction of you, if you like." He did like. He agreed. The friend said he could sit any way he wanted as long as it was natural for him, and then she took out a vast drawing notebook from somewhere, many pencils too, and got to work. Grandpa sat in his usual way, with a finger hooked through his coffee cup and an arm hooked over the back of his chair. Classic Grandpa. I call the pose the cocky lounging of a wild old man. My aunt's friend drew and drew, sketched and sketched, glaring at her sitter, glaring at her work, back and forth, and then she drew and sketched some more. She squinted her eyes, chewed on her tongue, grunted with dissatisfaction and satisfaction, held out her thumb to measure distance and proportion. She did everything you do when you're the best illustrator my aunt knows, and you're drawing Grandpa. On and on she illustrated, the minutes ballooning into a quarter hour, then a half hour, and all the time Grandpa sat as still as stone, his chin strong, his neck long, his eyes twinkling with the excitement we all feel when we see reflecting in someone else's eyes the person we hope to be. At last the friend gave her work a final stare, twisted her mouth this way and that, sighed deeply, nodded her head, then declared the portrait finished. "Wait!" She added one more thing or two, then sighed deeply again. "Okay," she said. "Are we ready to see?" "Oh, I think we're ready," said Grandpa. The friend of my aunt turned the humongous sketchbook around and gave Grandpa a look at himself, a real good look. Filling the artist's page was the bald, elderly baby. The baby naturally lapping up a generous stream of its very own snot. The moment Grandpa saw it, he roared with laughter. Believe it or not, he'd never guessed what was going on. He'd been tricked, caught somehow in his own trap, and best of all, he loved it. He laughed gigantically. All those years of drawing snot eaters had been building toward this master joke, a gift for him, a gift given by his daughter through a good friend. Grandpa held the drawing close and laughed. He laughed until there were tears in his eyes, until there were snots in his nose, snots hanging above his gaping laugher's mouth, which opened again and again for more. This has been Misbehaving in Maine. See you next time. And remember, you may be wicked, you may be weird, but you're not alone.